Hi, and thanks for stopping by. This is Jennifer McGuire. So lately, stamp layering stamp sets have become more popular. These are stamp sets where you stamp several images on top of each other to create something realistic looking, like the flowers you see here. The unfortunate thing about this is that you usually need several different colors of ink, usually a light, medium, and dark, to get that layered look. Well, today I'm going to show you how you can get that layered look using one color of ink plus one other tool. It's very easy to do. You likely have what you need for it. It's a great way to come up with lots of colors. Okay, so let me tell you how this card came together. I made this card at a retreat a few weeks ago. I made a bunch of them. You can see that Honey Bee Bless Your Heart stamp set on the side. I'll be using that. And also this W+9 stamp set. So I made these at a retreat, decided I wanted to make more, and I thought I'd film it today. When I made the card you see here, I used 3 shades of pink and 3 shades of green inks. I wanted to show you how you could do that with much less. So that's what I'm going to film today. So my card will look a little bit different, but I just wanted to show you where the design came from. I think sometimes the best thing to do is to recreate a card that you've done in the past that you like. It saves a lot of thinking. So let's start our stamping. I have some Neenah white cardstock here. Any white cardstock would work. And I've picked one ink color I want to use, and this is Pale Tomato from Hero Arts. Any dye ink would work. So what I'm going to do is start with the first image that I'm going to do for some flowers, and that is the most solid image. So you see on the stamp set there at the top, that image on the left, this is the most solid. That's the one I'm going to do first. So I'm stamping that here with that Pale Tomato ink. If it doesn't stamp perfectly, that's okay. This ink kind of evens out over time and will become solid. Now I'm going to stamp another flower right next to it, again starting with the solid most image. That's the first layer that I like to use. Then over here to the left, I'm going to do 3 little buds, and I'm just going to stamp them very quickly, kind of 3 in a cluster. So right now these flowers look pretty dark. This is a kind of a medium dark color, and I want them to be softer so that I can stamp over them and still be able to see my sentiment really bold. We're going to soften this, so don't worry about that. You can pick any shade of ink you want for that bottom layer. Okay, so this is the trick to stamp layering with one color of ink. You need a white pigment ink. So white pigment ink is something that many people have on hand, and you could use this in combination with any single color of ink to get the stamp layering look of multiple shades. So I'm taking that same solid image that we already stamped with the color, and I'm going to stamp this exact same image on top with the white pigment ink. If you stamp slightly offset, that's great actually, because some of that dark color will peek out the side, adding to the layering feel. But it doesn't have to be perfectly lined up. If you want it perfectly lined up, you could use your MISTI for this, so that your solid pink underneath lines up perfectly with the solid white on top. So basically I'm stamping this white ink on top to soften the color underneath. So now since this is a pigment ink and it stays wet for a little bit, I'm just going to use a cloth to kind of smooth it and take off some of the excess ink. You could heat set this if you want, but that white pigment ink looks kind of splotchy when you stamp it on top there until it dries. By using the cloth, you smooth it out and you get the most beautiful muted color. It's just gorgeous in real life. Okay, so now it's time to take that second layer in the flower. So it has a little bit less image to it. It's the one in the middle that you see on my stamp set on the top. I'm going to stamp that second layer with that same Pale Tomato ink, so right on top of the white pigment ink. So I'm going to do the same with the others. I'm going to take the second image that's supposed to layer on top of each other and stamp that with the Pale Tomato ink. So this ink layer looks darker because the layer underneath has that white on top of it. So we did the Pale Tomato and the white, and now we're doing the Pale Tomato again. So it looks like you've used 2 shades of ink, but really you've used one color in that white pigment ink. If you don't have a good white pigment ink in your stash, I highly recommend getting it. It's one of the best tools to have in your craft room. My favorite is the Hero Arts Unicorn White, but there are also great white pigment inks from Lawn Fawn and from Simon Says Stamp. Okay, so now it's time for the third. So I am again going back to that most solid image and stamping on top of this with that white pigment ink one more time. So that first layer of pink that we did is going to get even lighter this time. So basically, I'm doing the stamp layering, but in between each layer, I'm doing a solid image of the white pigment ink. This allows you to lighten each layer of color that you've put down so that the next layer you put down will look even darker. Now another thing you could do is skip this layer of white pigment ink and instead double stamp your last layer of stamping on top. It's just another option, but I really like the look of the white pigment ink on top because it really mutes down and gives a velvety look to the color underneath. You could use like an ink blending tool and just put white ink around the stamping that you've done instead of stamping it with a white pigment ink. But then you get white pigment ink on your white cardstock, and sometimes you can see that. This really gives beautiful results, and the matte finish is just gorgeous. Okay, so there I have done my layers of stamping. It looks like I've used 3 colors, a light, medium, and dark, but really I've only used 1 color of dye ink, along with my white pigment ink. Next, it's time to do our green leaves. So I'm using Hero Art's Green Hills ink. This one stamps pretty splotchy at first, but it does even out nicely. There are only 2 layers to these leaves, the solid one and then one on top of that. So I'm going to first stamp the solid with the green and then the solid again with the white. And you want to be sure you clean your stamp off well in between these steps so you don't get color on your white ink pad. If you do get colored ink on your white ink pad, just wipe your ink pad surface off with a paper towel and it should clean up nicely so it doesn't transfer to future projects. I also do think it's very helpful to kind of wipe your extra white ink off of your stamped image before you move on to the next step. Okay, so now I'm going to do the second layer with the green on top of the white. And I'm double and triple stamping this just because I really wanted to make it stand out even more since there are only 2 layers to this image. But you could skip this if you wanted to and just stamp it once. Now that I'm done with all of my stamping here, I'm going to heat set this very well. You really want to make sure that that white pigment ink is dry so that you can move forward to the next step. So here's the Honeybee Bless Your stamp set. This is probably my favorite stamp set of 2016 so far. You can put many different greetings together. You can have bless, blessings, blessed, and lots of things that go around it to create lots of different sentiments. I'm going to create blessed, and I am using my mini Misty stamping tool. You could use a large acrylic block here, but I'm making several cards, so I decided to break out the Misty stamping tool. Okay, so I have my card in place. This is a piece of transparency with a printed grid on it. You can buy this, and I'll link to where you can buy this. It's a great addition to your mini Misty stamping tool. I like to put that on top of my card so I can arrange my stamps on here and not have to worry about getting any of excess ink on the card below. It also helps to hold those clear stamps in place as I find the perfect position over the card. Now I can close my Misty door on it, and all the stamps are perfectly positioned to go ahead and do some stamping. That little transparency grid is a great tool. Before I move on, I'm going to generously use my anti-static powder tool over these images because I plan to heat emboss my sentiment and I don't want embossing powder anywhere else but the sentiment. Okay, so I'm using black VersaFine ink because I do plan to heat emboss this. So I'm inking this up and I'm going to press this down onto my paper. And I forgot to put my magnets down. I was being lazy, and notice here I almost messed up the card. Watch this as I open it. Panic strikes, but I got lucky and it didn't mess up. So I will use my magnets in the future. Okay, so I didn't stamp that completely, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp it again right on top. That's one of the joys of the Mini Misty. But again, you could just do this with a large acrylic block. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put some clear embossing powder onto this black image and heat set it. That way it will stand out and have a nice shine to it. Since I have the color behind it, I really wanted to make sure the sentiment stood out nice and loud. And by the way, I don't think I will ever grow tired of the cool effect of heat embossing. I think it's so much fun to watch that powder melt. Okay, so I wanted to add some shine to the flower, so I'm just using my Wink of Stella clear shimmer pen to add a little bit to like the darker areas of my flower so that when you kind of tilt this and the light will catch it and kind of give it a little bit of shine. So here you can see it's not great to see in the film, but you can see a little bit of that shine on the flower and also the heat embossing shine on the sentiments. Now that I've finished my stamping, I need to kind of trim this down some so I can put it onto a card. I have this frame die from Mama Elephant. It actually cuts out a frame around something and puts tiny little pierced dots in it. It's really a nice finish. So I'm going to frame this around my stamping that I've done here, tape it in place, and run it through my die cut machine. It'll kind of center up the stamping that I did because I did it kind of off center. And then I will have a nice white frame to go around it. Because there's so much going on in the middle of the card, I wanted to make sure that I kept the rest of the card simple. There's lots of layers, but it's all going to be white. So behind the main stamped piece, I am gluing some white craft foam. This is a little bit of dimension to put behind it. It's nice and even. If you used foam tape here and you put this through the mail, it would get smashed. So having that nice, even raised dimension behind it is really good to have. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that in the center of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card. I love how Mama Elephant got the sizing just perfect on this frame to fit on the front of a note card. So now I have the white frame itself. I'm putting just regular adhesive on the back of this, and I'll put it around that stamped piece in the center, and then we'll have like a white frame with little pierced dots kind of set back from that main image in the center. So here I'm kind of shining a light on it so you can see all the fun shine that we have, and here you can see the shimmer on the flowers and the clear heat embossing on the sentiment. So you could leave the card as is, but I decided I wanted to put some silver splattered dots in the background. But I have control issues and I worried about messing up my card. So I wanted a controlled splatter that I can completely control myself. So I was really excited about this My Favorite Thing stamp set. It's called Distressed Patterns. And if you have control issues but like the look of splatters, try out this stamp set. I'm using it with this new silver metallic ombre ink pad from Hero Arts. I really like that light silver strip of ink that you see there. The other colors are very nice too, but I wanted the light silver for these splatters. And check it out, I'm stamping those splatters myself. It looks like I splattered them, but I totally am calm and not freaking out about actually splattering on my card. This also prevents a need for masking anything that you don't want the splatter on. So I'm just kind of putting little splatters here and there. You can just stamp part of the stamp, you can do the whole thing, so you can really control how much you put down. I know there are a few other stamp sets with paint splatters in them. I like this one because it has super tiny splatters. Now look how pretty those silver spots are. However, I wanted to give that even more shimmer. So I'm taking my Spectrum Noir clear shimmer pen and adding a little bit of shimmer to each of those silver dots, at least the larger ones. You could use your Wink of Stella here. This is just what I grabbed first. And check out how much more they shine now. Just took a few seconds to do it, and it really makes a big difference on that silver. So that's a fun trick for adding a little bit more to your silver ink. Okay, so I wanted to make a bunch of these cards, and I wanted to kind of change them up or do more of the same. I needed a bunch of cards to send out. So what I did is I went ahead and heat embossed the sentiment and die cut it with the frame that I showed you before. And now I'm going to do my stamping on top. I'm doing the same thing. I stamp the solid image with a color ink. Then I'm stamping on top with the white pigment ink. But you can see here how you can make a bunch at once. Now the trick here though is that I have that black heat embossed. So see how that white pigment ink kind of sits on top of the black heat embossed area on the letter D there? Well, you got to kind of wipe that off or you'll end up with a mess and it won't look good. So I think it's easier to do your stamping like I did before and then do the heat embossed sentiment on top. However, I was just kind of trying to shake it up here and I wanted to show you that you could do either first. Okay, so since this card design could be used with a variety of stamps in the background, I decided to break out 2 memory box stamp sets that I've wanted to use because I really like them. This one has some great flowers where you stamp the solid flower and then that ornate kind of patterned flower on top. And I thought that would be perfect to do on the background of here. So I'm going to do the same technique again. I'm going to stamp the solid image first with my desired solid ink. Then I'll stamp on top of it with a white pigment ink, and then I'll do that next layer of stamping, the ornate pattern on top with the colored ink once again. You could, of course, use a light and a dark ink that look nice layered on top of each other, but I wanted to show you how you could use just one ink color, because I know a lot of people don't have a lot of inks in their collection. So I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to show you how I embellished this card. So I did the other flowers in different colors, and I didn't really feel like the silver splatters worked with this design. So instead I'm using these Nuvo drops. This is the white, and it comes out beautifully, a perfect round drop every time. And it's a great way to add a little bit of interest. These just dry perfectly round and smooth. They look like enamel dots, but you can control the size and you can use as many as you want. I like to tap it from the bottom to make them even out nicely. Then you set it aside to dry for a while and you have the perfect embellishments. It comes in a lot of colors, but white is definitely my favorite. Okay, so one more variation I wanted to show you. This uses another memory box stamp set, but this time butterflies. I really like these stamp sets, so I just wanted to show you how well it works. Now in this case, I have stamped the solid image below with a dark ink, then stamped on top with the white pigment ink, and now I'm stamping with that dark ink again. So you really can go bold. You can take a super dark ink and use it for layering like I did here with the help of the white pigment ink in between. So I'll have photos of all these different cards over on my blog if you want a closer look. Just wanted to share a bunch of options for this technique. If you're interested in the products I used before, they're linked in the YouTube description as always, but be sure to head over to my blog by clicking here on the top left on my logo. I'll have a lot more information there. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. I try to share videos as often as I can. In the middle are 3 other videos that might be helpful. Most of them involve stamp layering, so be sure to check those out. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again soon and have a great day.